Let's be honest, dealing with a difficult client can be one of the absolute worst parts of running a business. So today, we're going to break down a really powerful framework that acts like an early warning system. It's all about helping you spot trouble before it costs you time, money, and maybe most importantly, your peace of mind.
And this quote, it just hits home, doesn't it? It's for anyone who's ever had that client relationship go sour. You know that sinking feeling in your stomach that just drains all your energy and makes you wonder why you even got into this business in the first place? Yeah, we've all been there.
But here's the thing. What if the real skill isn't just about damage control after the fact? What if you could actually develop a kind of radar to filter out those problematic clients from the very beginning? Now that would be a total game changer, right? So how do we actually do that? Well, we're going to use a simple but really powerful tool called the Trickiness Matrix tool. I want you to think of it as your own personal radar for spotting tricky client behavior before it gets too close. Okay, so the matrix is built on a super simple timeline. It's split into two key phases: how a client acts before you sign anything, and how they act after the project is actually underway. You'd be amazed, but how they behave in just these two phases, well, it pretty much reveals everything you need to know. So here it is. This matrix lays out 6 different client profiles. Over on the left, in boxes 1 and 2, you've got your absolute dream clients. They're easy to work with before and after the project kicks off. But as you can see, as we move to the right, things start to get a little dicey. You get the potentially tricky client who gives off a few little warning signs, and then you've got the dreaded Jekyll and Hyde in box 4. You know the type, an absolute dream to sell to, but they become a real handful once the work actually begins. And then, way over on the far right, you've got the huge warning and the nightmare clients. All right, theory is great, but let's look at a case study to see how this thing works in the real world. This story is a perfect example of spotting a definitely tricky client before you get in way too deep. Okay, so let's meet Jimmy. The meeting gets off to a weird start with an ambush. He shows up, but nobody was even expecting him. That's your first warning sign. Then you get the silent treatment. He just sits there reading the entire proposal word for word, refusing any kind of discussion. Now that's a huge warning. And finally, the demolition. He literally picks up a pen and just starts striking through the document without a word. At this point, all the alarms in your head should be blaring. This guy has just confirmed he is deep, deep in box 5 territory. And this, right here, this is the crucial takeaway. When your gut is screaming at you and the red flags are this obvious, the single most professional move you can make is to listen to that instinct and just walk away. Seriously, protecting your business and your sanity, that has to be number one. Now, Jimmy's behavior might sound a little extreme, but it's actually made up of a bunch of common red flags. You know, things like constant delays in getting back to you, being super cagey with information, arguing indirectly about your price, or, and this is a classic, agreeing to pay deposit but then never actually doing it. If you start seeing these signs, it's probably time to head for the door. Okay, so we know how to spot the signs. That's great. But, just seeing the disaster coming isn't quite enough. The real power comes from building a system that filters these clients out proactively, so you don't even have to deal with them in the first place. So let's talk about your first line of defense. And this is the essential question every single business owner needs to ask themselves. Do you have a defined formal process for checking out a client before you agree to work with them? Or are you just kind of crossing your fingers and hoping for the best? Because having a real process, that's what separates the pros from the amateurs. The key here is to create your own filter by answering these questions before you even get on a call. You need to define your deal breakers and your non-negotiables right now. That way, when you're in the moment, you can make clear, unemotional decisions instead of getting swept up in the excitement of a potential sale. And here's a major mindset shift for you. Your proposal should never be the start of the negotiation. It should be the end. Think of it this way. It's not a pitch. It's a confirmation of everything you've already talked about and agreed on. If anything in that document comes as a surprise to the client, you've sent it way too early. But hey, let's be realistic for a second. Sometimes a tricky client is going to slip through the cracks. They might seem amazing at first, a classic Jekyll and Hyde, only to turn into a problem after the contract is signed. So, when that happens, you need a professional's playbook. When a project starts to go sideways, your signed contract becomes your anchor. This is not the time to get emotional. It's the time for impeccable professionalism. You focus only on the agreed-upon scope, you deliver it perfectly, you make it crystal clear that you've delivered, and you handle all the finances by the book. At this point, you are simply executing the contract. That's it. You also have to be prepared for pretty much any scenario. Have that contract ready to go, know your exact process for collecting fees, and look, if you made a mistake, own it. Apologize, fix it, and move on. And you know what? Sometimes you just have to accept that it's not a good personality fit. Finish the work like a pro, and then walk away gracefully. You know, this quote from the author really just gets to the heart of the whole thing. Every single tool we've talked about today, the matrix, the filters, the playbook, it's all built on this one simple truth. It is so much better to prevent a difficult situation than to try and fix one. Your foresight is your most valuable asset. Period. And that really just leaves us with one final critical question to think about. The true cost of a tricky client, it doesn't just show up on your balance sheet. It's measured in your focus, your team's morale, and your energy. It's the opportunity cost, the amazing clients you can't serve and the incredible work you can't do because all your attention is tied up somewhere else. So take a second and really think about it. Who in your business is costing you far, far more than they're worth?